The night sky lit up like fireworks over the quiet hills of Montana. But this wasn't celebration. Something was falling from space, leaving a bright trail behind it. The crash shook the ground for miles around, waking up every farm animal in the valley. Dr. Elena Martinez had been enjoying her evening tea on the porch when the strange light caught her attention. At 62, she had seen many things in her life as a child psychologist, but nothing had prepared her for what she would find in the smoking crater behind her house. Inside the twisted metal of what looked like a small spacecraft, she found a child. Not just any child. This little girl had skin that glowed pale blue in the moonlight and eyes the color of deep violets. She couldn't have been more than 8 years old, and she was crying in a way Elena had never heard before. It wasn't just sadness. It was pure terror mixed with confusion. Elena's first instinct wasn't to call the government or the military. As someone who had spent 30 years helping troubled children, she recognized trauma when she saw it. This little being needed care, not experiments in some laboratory. She carefully lifted the girl from the wreckage and carried her into the house. The child spoke in strange sounds at first, but within hours, she began picking up English words with amazing speed. She told Elena her name was Zara, and she had come from a place called Kepler 442b. Her home world was nothing like Earth. It was cold, organized, and run entirely by computers and machines. What shocked Elena the most was learning about how children were raised on Zara's planet. There were no families, no parents, no hugs or bedtime stories. Children lived in huge facilities where artificial intelligence systems taught them only facts and logic. Emotions were considered dangerous and useless. Love was something they had never even heard of. Zara had never played with toys, never laughed at silly jokes, never been tucked into bed by someone who cared about her. The idea of a family was completely foreign to her. On her world, children were just small adults who needed to learn how to think like machines. The first real challenge came at dinner time. Elena prepared a simple meal of soup and bread, but Zara refused to eat it. On her planet, food came in the form of gray paste that contained all necessary nutrients. The idea of food having different colors, smells, and tastes frightened her. She had never seen a carrot or tasted an apple. Most people might have forced the child to eat or worried about her health. But Elena had always believed in unconventional approaches. Instead of pushing, she decided to let Zara explore food in her own way. She took the little girl outside to her vegetable garden. "This is where food begins," Elena explained, kneeling down beside a tomato plant. She showed Zara how the tiny seeds grew into plants, how the plants needed water and sunlight, and how they produced food that was both beautiful and delicious. Zara was amazed. Her electromagnetic abilities allowed her to sense the energy flowing through the plants, something she had never experienced with the artificial food of her home world. For the first time in her life, she understood that food could be more than just fuel for the body. Elena gave Zara her own small patch of garden. Every day they would water the plants together, pull weeds, and watch tiny green shoots push up through the soil. Zara discovered that she had a natural gift for gardening. Her electromagnetic sensitivity helped her know exactly what each plant needed. As the vegetables grew, so did Zara's willingness to try new foods. The first tomato she tasted from her own garden brought tears to her eyes, not from sadness, but from wonder. She had never known that something could taste so alive, so full of sunshine and rain and earth. But the real breakthrough came when Elena began involving Zara in cooking. On Kepler 442b, food preparation was done by machines. The idea that cooking could be creative, that you could add different spices and create new flavors, was revolutionary to the young alien. Elena taught her that preparing food could be an act of love. When you cook for someone, you're not just feeding their body. You're showing them they matter to you. This concept was completely new to Zara, who had never experienced care from another being. The kitchen became their special place. Elena would tell stories while they chopped vegetables, sing songs while they stirred soup, and laugh together when something didn't turn out quite right. Zara learned that making mistakes wasn't terrible. It was just part of learning and growing. One evening, as they prepared dinner together, Zara asked Elena a question that would change everything. "Why do you take care of me? What do you get from it?" On her planet, every action had to have a logical purpose and benefit. Elena paused, considering how to explain something as complex as love to someone who had never experienced it. Finally, she said, "Because seeing you happy makes me happy. Because everyone deserves to be cared for. Because you're special, and the universe is better with you in it." Zara stared at Elena for a long moment, processing these foreign concepts. Then, for the first time since arriving on Earth, she smiled, not just with her mouth, but with her whole face. It was the beginning of her transformation from a logical little machine into a child who could feel and love and dream. That night, as Elena tucked Zara into bed with a story about brave princesses and magical gardens, the little alien girl realized she had found something on Earth that didn't exist on her advanced planet. A home where she was loved just for being herself. 3 months had passed since Zara's arrival, and Elena began to notice something troubling. The little girl would often stare blankly at the wall for hours, her face completely expressionless. When Elena asked her what she was thinking about, Zara would simply say, "Processing data like I was taught." On Kepler 442b, children were trained from birth to suppress all emotions: happiness, sadness, anger, excitement. These were all considered flaws in their programming. Zara had been conditioned to believe that feeling anything was wrong, dangerous, and needed to be fixed immediately. Elena realized that teaching Zara about human emotions would be her biggest challenge yet. Traditional methods wouldn't work. You couldn't just explain feelings to someone who had been taught they didn't exist. One rainy afternoon, Elena set up an easel in the living room and placed a blank canvas on it. She squeezed different colored paints onto a palette and handed Zara a brush. "I want you to paint whatever comes to your mind," Elena said gently. Zara looked confused. "What is the purpose of this activity? What problem does it solve?" "Sometimes," Elena explained, "we do things just because they feel good. Not everything needs to solve a problem." This concept was revolutionary to Zara. On her planet, every action had to have a logical purpose. The idea of doing something simply for joy was completely foreign. At first, Zara approached painting like a mathematical equation. She tried to create perfect geometric shapes and precise lines, but Elena encouraged her to let go of perfection. "There are no rules here," she said. "Just let the brush move however it wants to." Slowly, something began to change. As Zara relaxed her rigid control, colors began flowing together in unexpected ways. Deep blues mixed with angry reds, gentle yellows danced with mysterious purples. For the first time in her life, Zara was creating something that came from inside her, not from a computer program. When she finished her first painting, Zara stepped back and gasped. The canvas showed a swirling storm of colors, chaotic, beautiful, and somehow alive. "I don't understand," she whispered. "Where did this come from?" Elena smiled. "That, my dear, came from your heart. Those are your feelings, painted in colors." Over the following weeks, painting became Zara's way of exploring the strange new world of emotions. Each canvas told a different story. Some days her paintings were dark and turbulent, showing her fear and confusion. Other days, they burst with bright colors that seemed to dance off the canvas. Elena never criticized or tried to interpret Zara's art. She simply celebrated each creation as a brave step toward self-expression. She hung every painting on the walls, turning their home into a gallery of Zara's emotional journey. Music became another breakthrough. Elena introduced Zara to her old piano, a dusty instrument that hadn't been played in years. Unlike painting, music moved through time, creating feelings that couldn't be captured in a single moment. The first time Zara heard Elena play a sad melody, something extraordinary happened. Tears began flowing down her cheeks, not from physical pain, but from the pure emotion the music created in her heart. She had never experienced anything like it. "Why is water coming from my eyes?" Zara asked, touching her wet cheeks in wonder. "Those are tears," Elena explained. "They're your body's way of expressing feelings that are too big for words." On her planet, tears were considered a malfunction that needed immediate repair. But Elena taught Zara that tears were beautiful. They showed that her heart was learning to feel deeply. Elena began playing different types of music for Zara. Happy songs made her bounce and smile. Peaceful melodies helped her relax and feel safe. Exciting rhythms made her want to move and dance. Each type of music unlocked different emotions that had been hidden inside her for years. Then came the night of the thunderstorm. Zara's electromagnetic sensitivity made storms physically uncomfortable for her. The electrical energy in the air felt like static electricity running through her entire body. She usually hid in her room during storms, trying to block out the overwhelming sensations. But this time, Elena had a different idea. Instead of letting Zara hide, she took her hand and led her to the covered porch. "Let's watch the storm together," she said. At first, Zara was terrified. The lightning felt like it was shooting through her nervous system. But Elena began talking about the storm in a way Zara had never heard before. "Look how powerful and beautiful it is," Elena said, watching. "Lightning illuminate the dark sky. The storm isn't angry or trying to hurt anyone. It's just nature expressing itself, just like your paintings express your feelings." As they watched together, something clicked in Zara's mind. She began to see the storm not as chaotic destruction, but as nature's own form of art. The lightning was like brush strokes across the sky. The thunder was like music, sometimes soft and rumbling, sometimes loud and dramatic. For the first time since arriving on Earth, Zara felt genuine wonder. The emotion was so new and powerful that it took her breath away. She laughed, actually laughed, as rain began to fall around them. "It's beautiful," she whispered, and Elena saw tears of joy streaming down her face. That night marked a turning point in Zara's emotional development. She began to understand that feelings weren't weaknesses to be eliminated. They were gifts that made life richer and more meaningful. Elena's unconventional approach was working. By giving Zara safe ways to explore and express emotions through art and music, she was slowly healing years of emotional suppression. But this was just the beginning. The real test would come when Zara had to learn the most complex human emotion of all: love. By the time Zara turned 15, her differences had become more noticeable. Her electromagnetic abilities were growing stronger every day. Light bulbs would flicker when she walked past them. The television would change channels by itself when she got excited. Sometimes the microwave would start beeping for no reason at all. Most parents might have panicked or tried to hide these strange abilities. But Elena saw them as gifts, not problems. She spent hours with Zara, helping her understand what was happening to her body and mind. "Your abilities make you special," Elena would say whenever Zara felt frustrated about being different. "The world needs people who can see and feel things others cannot." But Zara was struggling with questions that kept her awake at night. She didn't look like other humans. She didn't think like other humans. Her skin still glowed faintly blue in the dark, and her eyes changed color with her emotions. She felt like she didn't belong anywhere. Too strange for Earth, but too changed for her home planet. One morning, Zara came to breakfast looking particularly sad. She had been watching other teenagers at the local library, seeing how easily they laughed and talked together. She felt like an outsider, looking through a window at a life she could never have. "I don't know where I belong," Zara told Elena, stirring her cereal without eating it. "I'm not human, but I'm not like my original people anymore either. What am I supposed to be?" Elena listened carefully, understanding that this was one of the most important conversations they would ever have. Instead of giving quick answers or false comfort, she made a decision that surprised them both. "Pack your bags," Elena said. "We're going on a road trip." For the next 3 weeks, Elena and Zara traveled across the country in Elena's old pickup truck. Their first stop was a small town in New Mexico, where they visited an art colony filled with painters, sculptors, and musicians who had all felt like outsiders in their original communities. Zara met an artist named Diego, who painted with his feet because he had been born without arms. She met a musician named Rose, who was deaf, but created beautiful music by feeling vibrations through her body. She met a writer named Ben, who had grown up speaking 3 different languages and never felt like he fully belonged in any one culture. Each person Zara met had a story about feeling different, about not fitting into the world around them. But instead of hiding their differences, they had learned to celebrate them as sources of strength and creativity. "Being different isn't a curse," Diego told Zara as she watched him create a stunning landscape painting with his toes. "It's a superpower. We see the world in ways that others cannot." Their next stop was a research station in Colorado, where scientists were studying weather patterns and electromagnetic fields. When the researchers learned about Zara's abilities, they were amazed. She could predict storms days before their equipment detected them. She could sense underground water sources that helped farmers find the best places to dig wells. Dr. Patricia Williams, the lead researcher, spent hours testing Zara's abilities. "You're not just different," she told Zara, with excitement. "You're evolutionary. Your electromagnetic sensitivity could help us understand our planet in completely new ways." For the first time, Zara began to see her alien nature as something valuable rather than something to hide. The most meaningful stop on their journey was a children's hospital in Denver. Elena had called ahead, explaining Zara's unique situation to the head nurse, who was curious about whether Zara's electromagnetic abilities might help their young patients. What happened next surprised everyone, including Zara herself. When she placed her hands near children who were in pain, something magical occurred. Her electromagnetic field seemed to interact with their nervous systems, providing comfort and relief in ways that traditional medicine couldn't explain. A 7-year-old boy named Tommy, who had been crying from stomach pain, fell asleep peacefully after Zara sat with him for just 10 minutes. A teenage girl named Lisa, who suffered from severe headaches, felt relief for the first time in months after Zara gently touched her forehead. The doctors couldn't explain it scientifically, but they couldn't deny the results. Zara's different. Nature wasn't just unique, it was healing. That night in their hotel room, Zara cried for hours. But these weren't tears of sadness or confusion. They were tears of understanding and gratitude. "I always thought being different meant I was broken," she told Elena. "But maybe being different means I can help people in ways that others cannot." Elena held Zara close, feeling proud of how far her adopted daughter had come. "That's exactly right, sweetheart. Your differences aren't mistakes, they're gifts." The final stop on their journey was a small farming community in Kansas, where drought had been destroying crops for years. Using her electromagnetic sensitivity, Zara helped. The farmers locate underground water sources that their equipment had missed. Within a week, wells were being dug and crops were being saved. The gratitude of the farming families was overwhelming. They didn't care that Zara looked different or came from another planet. They only cared that she had used her gifts to help them feed their families. On the drive home to Montana, Zara was quiet for a long time, processing everything she had experienced. Finally, she spoke. "Elena, I understand now. Belonging isn't about being the same as everyone else. It's about finding ways to use who you are to make the world better." Elena smiled, knowing that Zara had learned one of life's most important lessons. Love isn't about changing yourself to fit in. It's about finding people who celebrate who you truly are and helping others with the gifts you've been given. That night, as they watched the stars from their campsite, Zara felt something she had never experienced before: complete acceptance of herself and her place in the universe. The morning that changed everything started like any other. Zara, now 17, was helping Elena harvest tomatoes from their garden when the sky suddenly filled with an eerie humming sound. Both of them looked up to see a massive silver ship hovering silently above their farm. Zara's face went pale, her violet eyes wide with recognition and fear. "They found me," she whispered, dropping the basket of tomatoes she had been carrying. Within minutes, 3 tall figures emerged from the ship. They looked exactly like Zara, but older and somehow colder. Their movements were precise and calculated, like robots programmed to walk like people. These were her biological parents, Vex and Nera, along with a government official from her home planet. Elena stepped protectively in front of Zara, but the young girl gently moved her aside. "It's okay," Zara said, though her voice was shaking. "I have to face this." The reunion was nothing like the emotional family meetings Elena had seen in movies. Vex and Nera showed no warmth, no relief at seeing their daughter alive after 9 years. Instead, they looked at Zara with what could only be described as disappointment and concern. "Subject Zara 7742, Vex said in a flat, emotionless voice. "Your electromagnetic signature has been detected. You will return to Kepler 442b immediately for reconditioning." Elena's heart broke at hearing Zara referred to as a subject rather than a daughter. But what shocked her even more was seeing how Zara reacted to her birth parents. The confident, creative young woman she had raised seemed to shrink before Elena's eyes. "I understand, Birth Unit Vex," Zara replied, falling back into the formal language of her home world. For a moment, Elena feared that all their progress had been lost. Nera stepped forward, scanning Zara with a small device. Her expression grew more troubled as she read the results. "The contamination is worse than we anticipated," she announced. "The subject shows high levels of emotional activity, creative thinking patterns, and irrational attachment behaviors." "Contamination?" Elena stepped forward, anger flashing in her eyes. "You're talking about love, creativity, and joy. Those aren't contaminations. They're what make life worth living." The Keplerian official, who introduced himself only as Administrator Prime, looked at Elena with cold curiosity. "You are the human responsible for damaging this unit. Your primitive emotional conditioning has severely compromised her functionality." Elena couldn't believe what she was hearing. These beings spoke about Zara as if she were a broken machine instead of a living person with feelings and dreams. "Zara is not damaged," Elena said firmly. "She's become everything she was meant to be: kind, creative, loving, and capable of helping others. She's found her purpose." Administrator Prime pulled out a holographic display showing images of Kepler 442b. Everything was gray, orderly, and lifeless. "This is efficiency," he said. "This is perfection. Your emotional chaos has no place in an advanced civilization." But then something unexpected happened. Zara, who had been quietly listening to the conversation, suddenly straightened up. The fear in her eyes was replaced by something Elena recognized: determination. "I want to show you something," Zara said to her birth parents. She led them to the house where her paintings covered every wall. 9 years of emotional growth were displayed in brilliant colors and bold strokes. Vex and Nira stared at the artwork in horror. "What is the purpose of these chaotic patterns?" Nira asked. "They serve no logical function." "They show how I feel," Zara explained. "Each painting tells the story of something I learned about myself and the world around me." She took them to the piano, where she played a melody Elena had taught her, a simple song about hope and love. As the music filled the room, something strange happened. For just a moment, Nira's rigid expression seemed to soften, as if some long-buried memory was trying to surface. But Administrator Prime quickly stepped in. "Enough of this emotional display. The reconditioning process will remove these inefficiencies and restore proper function. We leave within the hour." That's when Elena realized the most difficult moment of her unconventional parenting journey had arrived. She had always taught Zara to make her own choices, to think for herself, and to follow her heart. Now she had to live by those principles, even if it meant losing the daughter she loved more than life itself. "Zara," Elena said quietly, "the choice is yours. I won't fight for you or try to hide you away. You're old enough to decide your own future." The room fell silent. Zara looked back and forth between the two worlds represented in that moment. The cold efficiency of her birth parents and the warm love of the woman who had raised her. "I need time to think," Zara said finally. "Give me until sunset to make my decision." Administrator Prime seemed annoyed by the delay, but agreed. The three Keplerians returned to their ship to wait. As soon as they were alone, Zara collapsed into Elena's arms, sobbing. "I don't know what to do," she cried. "They're my biological family, but you're my real mother. How can I choose between worlds?" Elena held her daughter close, her own heart breaking. "Sometimes," she said softly, "the hardest part of loving someone is letting them find their own path, even when it scares you." That afternoon, Elena did something that showed the true depth of her unconventional parenting. Instead of trying to convince Zara to stay, she helped her understand both choices completely. They talked about the advantages of Kepler 442b, the advanced technology, the lack of conflict, the logical order of everything. But they also talked about what Zara would be giving up, her creativity, her ability to help others, her capacity for love and joy and wonder. As the sun began to set, Zara made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. She had found a third option that no one had considered. Standing between her birth parents and Elena, with tears streaming down. Her face, Zara announced her choice, one that would change not just her life, but the future of both worlds. As the sun painted the Montana sky in shades of orange and pink, Zara stood in the middle of the farm that had become her home. Elena held her breath, while the three Keplerians waited impatiently for an answer that would determine the course of two worlds. "I've made my decision," Zara announced, her voice stronger than anyone expected. "But it's not the choice any of you are expecting." Administrator Prime stepped forward, clearly annoyed. "There are only two options, Subject Zara 7742. Return for reconditioning or remain contaminated. Choose." Zara looked directly at him, her violet eyes blazing with determination. "You're wrong. There's a third option that nobody has considered. I choose to become a bridge between our worlds." The silence that followed was deafening. Elena stared at her daughter in amazement, while the Keplerians looked confused by this unexpected response. "I'll spend part of my time on Kepler 442b, Zara continued, "but not to be reconditioned. I want to teach our people something they've forgotten. That logic and emotion aren't enemies. They're partners that can solve problems neither could handle alone." Vex spoke first, his voice sharp with disapproval. "Emotions make beings weak and inefficient. This is established fact." But Zara was ready for this argument. She pulled out her phone and showed them videos from their recent travels. Look at what happened when I helped those sick children in the hospital. My electromagnetic abilities, combined with compassion, healed them in ways your advanced medicine never could. She showed them footage of the farmers whose crops she had saved. And here, my sensitivity to electromagnetic fields, guided by the desire to help others, found water sources that your logical scanning equipment missed. For the first time since arriving, Neera seemed genuinely curious. How is this possible? Our technology is superior to anything on this primitive planet. Because, Zara explained patiently, your technology only looks for logical patterns. But sometimes the answers aren't logical. Sometimes you need to feel your way to the solution. Elena watched with pride as her daughter presented her case with both passion and reason. 9 years of unconventional upbringing had prepared Zara for this moment perfectly. I propose an exchange program, Zara continued. Let me bring some of our people to Earth to learn about emotions, creativity, and intuitive problem-solving. In return, I'll bring some humans to Kepler 442b to share our advanced technology and logical thinking methods. Administrator Prime looked horrified. Impossible. Emotional contamination would spread throughout our entire civilization. Good, Zara replied simply. Maybe it's time our civilization learned to feel again. Then she did something that shocked everyone present. She reached out and gently took Neera's hand. The older woman flinched at the unexpected physical contact, but Zara held on. Birth Unit Neera, Zara said softly. Do you remember anything from before the emotional suppressors were installed in your brain? Do you remember what it felt like to love? For just a moment, something flickered behind Neera's cold eyes. A memory, perhaps, of a time when she could feel joy or wonder or affection. Her hand trembled slightly in Zara's grasp. There was something, Neera whispered, so quietly that everyone had to lean in to hear her. Before the conditioning. A feeling when I looked at the stars. But it was removed because it served no purpose. That feeling was wonder, Zara explained. And it serves the greatest purpose of all. It makes life worth living. Elena could see that Zara's words were having an impact. Even Vex seemed less certain than before, though he tried to hide it. I'm not asking you to abandon logic, Zara continued. I'm asking you to add emotion to it. Imagine what our people could accomplish if we combined our advanced reasoning with the power of love, creativity, and intuition. Administrator Prime stepped forward, clearly wanting to end this conversation. Enough. This discussion serves no purpose. You will return for reconditioning or remain in exile. Final decision. But Zara had one more card to play. She looked directly at Elena, tears streaming down her face. Elena taught me that love isn't about keeping someone for yourself. It's about wanting what's best for them, even if it hurts you. She turned back to her birth parents. If you truly care about me, if there's any part of you that remembers what love feels like, then you'll let me try this. Give me 1 year to prove that emotions can make our people stronger, not weaker. The negotiation that followed lasted hours. Elena watched as Zara skillfully balanced logical arguments with emotional appeals, showing wisdom far beyond her 17 years. Finally, a compromise was reached. Zara would spend 6 months on Kepler 442b, working with volunteers who were curious about emotions. In return, she could bring a small group of humans to her home planet to demonstrate Earth's unique approaches to problem-solving. The real breakthrough came when Neera quietly volunteered to be part of the emotional learning program. I want to remember what I felt when I looked at the stars, she admitted. 5 years later, Elena stood in her garden, now filled with plants from both Earth and Kepler 442b. the interplanetary exchange program had grown beyond anyone's wildest dreams. The young Keplerians came to Earth to study art, music, and human relationships. Earth scientists traveled to Kepler 442b to learn advanced technologies guided by newly emotional alien researchers. Zara had just returned from her latest trip to coordinate the exchanges. At 22, she had become something unprecedented. A leader who could think with both perfect logic and deep emotion. "Look at this," Zara said excitedly, showing Elena a holographic message from her home planet. It was a painting, the first piece of art created on Kepler 442b in over 1,000 years. It had been painted by Nira, showing a star-filled sky in brilliant colors that expressed the wonder she had rediscovered. Elena smiled, remembering the scared little girl who had crashed in her backyard so many years ago. "Your tears really did change everything, didn't they?" Zara nodded, her own eyes wet with tears of joy. "You taught me that crying isn't weakness. It's the proof that we're alive, that we can feel deeply enough to care about something bigger than ourselves." As they watched children from two worlds playing together in the garden, learning from each other's perspectives, Elena realized that her unconventional parenting methods had accomplished something extraordinary. She hadn't just raised one special child. She had helped plant the seeds for a more emotionally intelligent universe. The little alien girl's tears had indeed changed everything, proving that sometimes the greatest strength comes from allowing yourself to feel deeply and love completely.